All right, it's time for another 49ers Intel. Carving out a little bit of time here. My family is in town. They got into town yesterday, so trying to find my way around the schedule here for some shows for you all. I was in the locker room again today, and the 49ers, well, they're happy because Christian McCaffrey is playing Santa Claus in the 49ers locker room. A gift for Brock Purdy and the entire 49ers offense. It was funny. I walked by Jair Brown, and he saw the gift for the entire offense, and he said, wait, I got to get closer with the offensive guys. Look at this. All the offensive guys get Christian McCaffrey's gift. This is from Tay Martin's Instagram.
Shout out to the boy, Christian, man. Top of the line, man.
Top of the line, customized golf bags for everyone on the 49ers offense, not for everyone in the locker room. Everyone on the 49ers offense in the locker room, customized golf bags from Christian McCaffrey. Now, it was pretty funny. Obviously, Christian has a bigger budget with which to work for these presents than the typical guy that would do this, the quarterback, right? We saw Patrick Mahomes. He's getting his entire offensive line vehicles. So it's getting out of hand every year. Christian McCaffrey, I think in Carolina in the past, had gotten big green eggs, the grills for all of his offensive linemen. Now he's getting the entire offense, these customized golf bags. And also on top of that, there was a bottle of tequila in the golf bags. But anyway, Christian McCaffrey's making what, $12 million a year? Brock Purdy's at $800,000 a year. So today somebody asked Brock Purdy, well, hey, wait, what is this happening because Christian has a bigger budget to afford a gift like this? It was all in jest. And Brock just laughed and he said, yeah, I don't know if I'd be able to financially cover a gift like that. I'm sure Brock will cook up something, maybe through a sponsorship, we'll see, for the 49ers, at least their offensive linemen. That's customary. The one thing that's not happening this year, though, is the Christmas card, or at least it's not happening yet. Remember, we had Brock Purdy, Nick Zakelj, and Alfredo Gutierrez, the three roommates last year with the Christmas card. Well, now it's down to two roommates. Brock Purdy and Nick Zakelj are the two roommates. Alfredo Gutierrez lives elsewhere this season. But supposedly the Christmas card has not been made yet, and that's what Purdy said. And then I think it was Tracy Sandler followed up with, well, Christmas is just a couple days away. What's going on? Are you going to be able to get the card out in time? And Purdy didn't seem so sure. So we'll see what Purdy's gift is as we move forward here in this Christmas season. It's December 22nd. I'm excited because my family's in town. It's going to be a fun few days here in the Bay Area with the 49ers and the Ravens playing on Monday night. Matchup analysis is here. And, one of my big pieces to start the week was, could 49ers Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey split the MVP? The reason I have this going hand in hand with matchup analysis, which is what I'm going to talk about in a little bit, is I think the 49ers offense is the key to this game. It is the most pronounced advantage that they have. So we'll take a peek at that in just a second. But you look at the fact that the Ravens can run the football, right? You look at the fact that their number one rushing offense against the 49ers, number 18 rush defense. Gus Edwards is a 238-pound bowling ball of a running back. Lamar Jackson can give the 49ers a whole lot of trouble with his running ability. You look at all of that because the 49ers are coming off of the 16 missed tackle game against the Arizona Cardinals. And you say, wait, the Ravens might be able to take the air out of this game if they play their game plan correctly and the 49ers continue struggling against the run. On paper, you could see the formula. You could see the path for Baltimore. But the reason that the 49ers are 5.5-point favorites is because their offense is so damn explosive. We're talking one of the most explosive offenses of all time at this point, that they can effectively turn what would be a crippling disadvantage for teams, and a crippling disadvantage for most teams would be this disadvantage against the Ravens run game. The 49ers can turn that on its head, and I think they could neutralize it. And that's why I'm focused on Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, and the 49ers offense in this matchup against the Ravens. It is, and don't get me wrong, the Ravens have a good defense. This is one of the best defenses in the league. They might even have an argument for the best defense in the league, but I think, right now, Cleveland's still winning that battle. The metrics all support the Cleveland Browns, but the former Cleveland Browns, or the Baltimore Ravens, for those of you who know your NFL history, these guys can get after it on every single level of the football. The Ravens have a NFL best 50 sacks this year. And, today, George Kittle called Jadeveon Clowney. By the way, remember him, Jadeveon Clowney, South Carolina to the NFL, has had a nice long career, really productive edge rusher. George Kittle called Jadeveon Clowney an alien today. He does stuff that you could go back to that South Carolina bowl game that they played. What was that? The Outback Bowl, I think, where he just completely destroyed the Michigan. I think it was the Michigan quarterback in that game, right? It was Michigan against South Carolina. Jadeveon Clowney made one of the more famous hits of college football history. But he's been around, and he's been around as just a guy that has tremendous burst off the line of scrimmage for the type of size that he has. It's really solid edge rushing size. He could set an edge against the run. I mean, this is a really, really good player. And the thing is, the Ravens, they don't have a TJ Watt on this team, but they have like 5 guys that could really, really get after the quarterback, which is, I think, more valuable than having just one. You obviously have Clowney on one of the edges. You have Kyle Van Noy coming off the other edge. Van Noy was a really good player for the New England Patriots. He played a little while for the Miami Dolphins. He's a veteran that's been around the league that has bookended this line really well. Brent Urban coming off the edge. I mean, he's depth, but he's been very, very good for these Baltimore Ravens. Malik Harrison as well. I mean, this is a team that can get after it against opposing offensive tackles. And the NFL best 50 sacks, including some that have come from the middle from Michael Pierce and Justin Matabuki, those are reflective of the priorities that the Ravens have put forward defensively, and that is athleticism, even at the cost of some size on the inside to beat guards and the center to the quarterback. So this pass rush is not to be taken lightly. And as you know from watching the 49ers, it is not just about the front four when it comes to sacks. You've got to be able to lock up on the back end. The coverage combinations have to be correct, and you also have to be able to swarm at the linebacker level to goad quarterbacks into holding the ball an extra hitch. So the question is, can the Ravens goad Brock Purdy into holding the ball an extra hitch or two so that the Ravens defensive line can beat the 49ers offensive line? It hasn't really happened this year, right? The 49ers have been historically efficient on the offensive side of the football, but I will say that the Ravens do have pieces on the back end that makes this a little bit more interesting than almost all of the 49ers' previous games. And that's why this is one of the more touted matchups in NFL regular season history. Kyle Hamilton, the safety for the Ravens, he's 6'4". For comparison, Fred Warner is 6'4", and Fred Warner is a really tall linebacker. Kyle Hamilton will play in the box. He'll play in coverage. He'll blitz. He's got 3 sacks this year. He's got 2 interceptions this year. He's one of the more versatile players on the back end, and his speed and height, that length combination at 6'4", is really what makes him tick as a really, really good defensive back. He's far from the only talented player that the Ravens have on the back end. I talked about Marlon Humphrey at the cornerback position. Brandon Stevens is on the other side. So these are, nobody is a negative player. There's no minus players on this Ravens defense, and they're particularly strong at linebacker, just like the 49ers are. And today, that's all that the 49ers seem to talk about, from Kyle Shanahan yesterday to Brock Purdy today to a little bit from George Kittle today. They wanted to talk about the linebackers, Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. I think that it's clear that the 49ers have the best linebacking duo in football in Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, but Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen are pretty damn good as well. The Ravens have given up the fewest first quarter points in the league this year. And it's because guys like Smith and Queen fly around and hit you, kind of like the 49ers hit teams in the first quarter, kind of like how their defense has been able to set the tone with its linebacking unit. So the 49ers in this game will be challenged from the get-go by a balanced defense. That balance means that coverage fuels the rush fuels the coverage. And if you're the 49ers, you cannot fall victim to this really, really high sack tally that the Ravens have put up. It really is, that's a lot of sacks. The 49ers in 2019 finished with 49 or 50 in a full season. It wasn't as long of a season as now. It was a 16-game season, but the Ravens have played, only 14 games, and they're already at about that number of sacks where the 49ers were. So you know how many sacks that is. You can appreciate that because that 2019 49ers defense was getting a lot of them. This is going to be a monumental test for the 49ers. Now, I have a theory, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, that the 49ers offense it's impossible to cover geometrically if all of its skill position weapons are healthy. And then that puts the ball into Brock Purdy's court. And if he's making MVP-like decisions, if he's continuing with his elite scanning of the field of across the progressions, generally from left to right, then he's going to be able to find that open man. It doesn't matter how good your defense is. If you have Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, I mean, if you have the whole gang of guys running their routes with a decent design from Kyle Shanahan, they're going to be able to get open. And if one of them does get open, if one of those angles, one of those openings is there, then it's up to Brock Purdy to play point guard and be able to find it and be able to make the quick decision and the quick throw, which is what he's so great at, right? That's why he's the leader in the MVP conversation right now, because he's distributed the football more efficiently than any other quarterback in the NFL, almost more efficiently than any other quarterback ever in the NFL. He's behind only Peyton Manning right now in terms of adjusted net yards per attempt. We'll get to that in a little bit when we talk about the Purdy McCaffrey analysis. But I think if the 49ers play great offense, and that's happened when they've been healthy, I think that can beat even great defense from the Ravens. I think that probably is the X factor in this game. Now, you run into full toss-up mode if the 49ers start losing players, and Jawan Jennings is in concussion protocol right now. I hadn't practiced yet this week, so you're starting to whittle away at some of that offensive depth. I know that Jennings isn't one of the superstars offensively, but he's so big in the blocking game for the receivers, so that could potentially be a big loss. But if you go back to the game against Cleveland, the number one defense in football, the 49ers lost Deebo Samuel. They lost Christian McCaffrey, and Trent Williams was playing really hurt the whole game. So if stuff like that starts happening, all of a sudden your geometric advantage is not as pronounced. And that's where this could really be turned into a knockdown, drag-out fight in the mud against the Ravens. Now, other side of the football, this Baltimore team, they're operating from the drop-back pass game much, much more frequently than in the past. No more Greg Roman as the offensive coordinator. Roman had, and they'll still run zone read. And Steve Wilks talked about the need to be ready for zone read, and Lamar Jackson, all the design stuff on the ground today after practice. That's what Wilks talked about. But I think that the most intriguing thing about the potential Super Bowl candidacy of these Baltimore Ravens is that Lamar Jackson is winning from the pocket this year. Lamar Jackson, I mentioned this earlier in the week, is leading all NFL quarterbacks at 7.6 yards per attempt on short throws. Brock Purdy's number 2 at 7.5. Purdy leads in intermediates and he leads in deep passes. But the fact that Lamar Jackson's numbers on those short throws have been so efficient shows you that he's been really good in rhythm. It's not another Jalen Hurts situation where Hurts hasn't been good in rhythm. He's been good running around and then chucking it downfield. Jackson is very different. It's a bigger challenge than Jalen Hurts because he's been good in rhythm. Nothing frustrates pass rushers more than a quarterback who can take that snap, find a guy in rhythm before the pass rush has a chance of hitting. That's really difficult stuff for a pass rush. You're going to be gassed. You're probably not going to be able to find any reward for your effort in terms of sacks, and you're going to have to rely on the coverage on the back end to make Jackson hold the ball another hitch. So the very same goal and the very same objective that the Ravens defense has for Brock Purdy, make him hold it another hitch with your coverage and your linebackers on the back end, the 49ers are going to have for Lamar Jackson. Now, you make Jackson hold the ball a couple hitches, that's when he takes off and runs. So you could see the catch-22, right? So you want to make sure that the pass rush is as disciplined as your coverage, and it's going to take a very detail-oriented game. When you're dealing with two teams who are so damn good, and again, I've talked about this already, the 49ers number 3 all-time DVOA, the Ravens number 11 all-time through 14 weeks DVOA. I mean, this is a historically good matchup by the numbers. When you're dealing with this kind of matchup, it's going to be the details that determine the game. That was one of Steve Wilks' main points today. It's going to be the team that is paying attention to the angles coming off of a motion. It's going to be the team paying attention to the post-snap adjustments at the line of scrimmage. It obviously is going to come down to a tackle here and a tackle there to try to grab control of game flow. This kind of stuff is going to be critical, and I think it's likely to be a nail biter. Now, there's a chance that the 49ers blow the doors off the Ravens if they do everything right in the early minutes and the Ravens make a critical error or two. That's how the 49ers can open up the flood mode, right? That's how they can open up that scoreboard deluge, as we call it. But I think in all likelihood, they're going to have to win a fist fight. They're going to have to win a bar fight with the Ravens because the quality of both of these teams across all levels of their offense and their defense, the amount of talent that we're going to see on the field with both teams presumably fired up, ready to go, Monday Night Football, Christmas night, I think that's going to lend itself to a true game of inches. And the details are indeed going to be really important. All right, the McCaffrey Purdy MVP analysis, because within the context of all that, this is a legacy game. I mean, Steve Young said it's just one of those events where it looks like the quarterback who wins this game or the running back who takes over the game, if that happens with Christian McCaffrey, might be the MVP winner. Right now, Purdy is the favorite. Lamar Jackson is at number 2 in the betting odds, and McCaffrey might be a number 3. I'm not exactly sure, but I know that he's within the top 5, and he's making the strongest case for a running back in quite some time. And that's what I wrote about. The link is in the description, so go ahead and check it out. You can get the Athletic for the $1 a month sale as we speak. But I spoke of the potential of a split vote for the MVP. Now, it's not likely, especially now that they do I think what they call is rank choice voting. So you're going to, if you're an AP voter, one of the 50 voters for the MVP award, you're going to vote for a first place guy, a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth place guy. And then they add all the points based on who you voted for where, and that determines who wins. So it's less likely to be split as it was back in 1997 when Brett Favre and Barry Sanders split the MVP award, or like it was in 2003 when Peyton Manning and Steve McNair split the MVP award. That being said, I do think that it's very likely that Brock Purdy and Christian McCaffrey do at least split some votes among voters, depending on what voters think of the 49ers offense. If they think it all runs through McCaffrey or if they think it all runs through Purdy. I think technically it obviously runs through Purdy since he's the one that touches the ball in every snap, but there obviously is an argument to be made about McCaffrey's impact on this offense. That being said, even when Jimmy Garoppolo was the quarterback last year and Christian McCaffrey was already aboard, this offense was nowhere near as efficient as it is right now. And you can see what Brock Purdy is doing right now. This is historic stuff. These are the biggest or the best adjusted net yard per attempt full seasons in NFL history. This is part of my analysis on The Athletic. The ones shaded in gray all won the NFL MVP award. So adjusted net yards per attempt is going to include interceptions. It's going to include sack yardage. It's going to include touchdown passes on top of yards per attempt. And it's going to give you a very, very accurate yet simple measure of efficiency. The best number ever put up was from Peyton Manning in 2004. Those Colts were awesome. 9.78. So Purdy just passed Aaron Rodgers at 9.55. Rodgers is at 9.39. Purdy even better than Matt Ryan from the Shanahan offense with Julio Jones in 2016. There's Marino, there's Mahomes and Rodgers tied at number 6. Those are the best seasons, or the best season for Mahomes. Tom Brady's best season is 8.08 in 2007. And then Peyton Manning had another season at about 8.9. So this graphic right here shows you why Brock Purdy is the odds-on favorite to win the MVP. If all the guys shaded in gray have won the MVP and Purdy's up there shaded in blue at number 2 with a chance to still surpass Peyton Manning, it'd be crazy, I think, if he didn't win it. Now, that being said, Christian McCaffrey is making his case, and these are the running back winners of the past 30 years. So I compared Christian McCaffrey to the MVP running back winners. You've got Emmitt Smith in 93, Barry Sanders in 97. That was co-MVP with Brett Favre. Terrell Davis in 1998, and Mike Shanahan running back for the Denver Broncos. Marshall Faulk in 2000, the greatest show on turf Rams. Sean Alexander of the Seahawks in 05. LT, LaDainian Tomlinson in 06, and then 2012, Adrian Peterson. These are McCaffrey's paces for the season. He's on pace for 2,100 187 all-purpose yards. Now, he does have an extra game over all of these other players. They played 16-game seasons. McCaffrey is going to play a 17-game season. But if he does put up these numbers, they're going to be really comparable to Marshall Faulk's in 2000. 1,359 rushing yards. McCaffrey on pace for over 1,500. Marshall Faulk, 2,189 total yards. McCaffrey on pace for 2 fewer than that. And about the same amount of touchdowns, 24 and 26. Now, Marshall won the MVP that year. Now, the kind of the twist here is that, the greatest show on turf Rams are being compared to these 49ers in many ways. But the year before, Kurt Warner, the relatively unknown quarterback who came out of nowhere, a little bit similar to Brock Purdy, won the MVP in 99. In 2000, the running back, Marshall Faulk, won it. And in 2000, it went back to Warner. In 2001, it went back to Warner. In 2000, the year Warner didn't win it, Kurt Warner broke his hand, right? He had the fractured hand for 5 games in the middle of the season. So that opened the door to the running back. Obviously, Purdy has so far played all the games this year. So I don't know if if historical precedent would tell us that there's as big of an opening for Christian McCaffrey due to a quarterback being hurt or due to a quarterback underperformance as there was for Marshall Faulk in 2000. One more graphic. These are the top QBs in those seasons that running backs won the award. So in the year that Emmitt Smith won, Steve Young was the top QB. This is by adjusted net yards per attempt again. In the year that Favre and Barry Sanders won co-MVP, it was Favre who was the top QB. In the year that Terrell Davis won, it was Randall Cunningham who was the top QB. In the year that Faulk won, and by the way, top QB, I mean in the voting. This is in the MVP voting, not necessarily statistically, but I'm listing their adjusted net yards per attempt. Donovan McNabb was the top vote getter, second place when Marshall Faulk won his. Wasn't Kurt Warner, who missed those 5 games. Peyton Manning, when Sean Alexander won his. LaDainian Tomlinson, when he won his, was Drew Brees. And when Adrian Peterson, won his MVP, it was Peyton Manning. Look at the quarterback runners-up in all of those years. Look at the numbers of their adjusted net yards per attempt. McNabb was especially bad. McNabb was 4.8. It was probably because he was the leading rusher and he didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver for Philadelphia, and he still led him to the playoffs. So they gave some respect to Donovan McNabb, despite the fact that his stats weren't good. But all of these guys pale in comparison to Brock Purdy's number, 9.6. And right, Brock Purdy's number is this, remember, 9.55, 9.6, which is the second highest number of all time. So basically, Purdy is way better than any QB, or way more efficient than any QB was in the years over the past 3 decades that a running back has won the award. That doesn't rule out Christian McCaffrey this year, not in the least bit. And you could read the full analysis right here. It is in the description. It's $1 a month right now for The Athletic, so be sure to check it out. I don't think that rules out McCaffrey because obviously the voting is complicated. There's a lot of respect for Christian McCaffrey anywhere that you look on the internet. I think that obviously the respect for Brock Purdy, because he hasn't been doing it for as long of a time as Christian McCaffrey, is building. So, we'll see. All I can tell you is the historical precedent. I could tell you the way that this award is voted for. And I can also tell you that it seems that this thing vacillates wildly, at least as far as the betting market goes, on a week-by-week basis, right? I mean, last week, Dak Prescott was the favorite. All of a sudden, he loses to the Buffalo Bills, and now he's an afterthought. It probably shouldn't be how the MVP award is given out, right? You probably should be a little bit more judicious and big picture oriented. You shouldn't determine who is winning the MVP and who's losing the MVP on a week-to-week basis. But whether we like it or not, that's how voters seem to be looking at it this year, at least according to the betting markets, which can be indicative of what's going on. That being said, I think that Steve Young recognized that undercurrent when he came on to KMBR this week, and he said, it feels like that kind of event. It feels like a game where the winner, and if it's a QB that plays well on the winner, it feels like that guy might be in line for the MVP, whether it be Brock Purdy or Lamar Jackson. I don't think you can count Jackson out. The Ravens are 11-3 after all. His statistics may not be anywhere near Purdy's ballpark, but we're talking about a human voting process. We're talking about a situation where head-to-head matters, but not only that, head-to-head late in the season matters because that's going to leave a lasting imprint on voters. So it's going to be fascinating. I'm all here for it. I'm all here for a hell of a matchup between the 49ers and the Ravens. One thing is that these are the two best yak defenses in the National Football League. The Ravens stop yak better than anybody. That's yards after the catch, and the 49ers are number 2. And I think both of these offenses want to generate yak. The 49ers are number 1 in that regard by a lot. They've set it up nicely this year, and they've got the weapons to be able to do it. And the Ravens are in the top half of the league. The Kyle Shanahan complimented them on their yards after the catch. In a game where details are going to matter a lot, stuff like this is going to be big. If one of these two defenses doesn't play up to its reputation of stopping yak, I think that's going to be the team that loses. That's going to be the margin in a football game like this. All right, that's the 49ers-Ravens matchup analysis. 49ers intel, the McCaffrey gift for Purdy in the offense. More intel, you're probably wondering about the defensive tackle position. Javon Hargrave was back at practice for the 49ers today. No Eric Armstead. We'll have the final weekly report for you tomorrow. Remember, everything is pushed back a day. So the 49ers healing up a little bit. They probably won't have their best run-stopping interior defensive linemen. I think that obviously spells trouble against this. Gus Edwards, the 238-pound bowling ball up front. That being said, put Baltimore into some passing situations, and I don't think that Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw are going to play as poorly as they did last week. So you put Baltimore into some passing situations, and I think that Javon Hargrave is going to have a good matchup against John Simpson, the Ravens left guard. It's all about avoiding this key fracture point if you're the 49ers. The Ravens have the number 1 run offense, and the 49ers have a very lowly ranked run defense compared to the Ravens run offense. Number 18. I mean, you look at that, that's the only real metric where the 49ers on offense or defense are below average. So that's my look at it. I think that really covers all the position groups. Obviously, I'm going to delve into this a little bit more. Like I said, my family's in town and is in town. That's why I haven't had as much time here over the past 24 hours. So we're going to revisit everything that we can before kickoff and obviously bring you the updates tomorrow. Everybody, thank you for watching. Got to put that first title back up there. Where is it? There it is. 49ers Intel, Christian McCaffrey, gift for Brock Purdy and the offense. That was the Christmas gift. So on that note, I'll tell you Merry Christmas for the first time. Probably say Merry Christmas a few more times. It's only December 22nd, but on the 25th, it will actually be Christmas, and the 49ers and the Ravens are going to cap it off. So Merry Christmas, and everybody, thank you for watching. We'll talk to you very soon.